Good day, good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Gutierrez. I am the Program Management Officer at the Minamata Secretariat. So this is the first event of the week of Pre-COP 4.2 online side events. So on behalf of the Secretariat, we are excited to have all of you, and we are very thankful and grateful for you to be participating in the event today, and hopefully not the last one. And we do hope to see you more throughout the week of thought-provoking discussions and side events. Side events are an important part of the Minamata Convention Conference of the Parties, and they provide an opportunity to exchange information, bring advances in technology, research, and policy to the attention of the parties and the global community that the convention serves. The Secretariat is proud to present to you the event entitled Promoting Implementation of the Minamata Convention on Mercury with a synergistic approach in the ECOWAS and SADC regions, or the SADC regions. This event has been organized by UNIDO. Before I turn over the floor or the mic to my colleagues at UNIDO, I would just like to go over a couple of quick housekeeping notes for all of us. You may wish to test or adjust your speaker and microphone settings by opening the audio and video menu at the top left corner of your screen. You can open the participants panel, and the chat panel by clicking the respective icons at the bottom right corner of your screen. If the moderator opens the floor and if you wish to take the floor, please click the raise hand icon that appears next to your name on the participants panel. The moderator will be calling your names based on the order of the hands raised and allow you to unmute. When you are named, please unmute. And then before speaking, kindly say your name and the organization you're with. And after speaking, kindly mute yourself and click the lower hand icon button. You may also wish to type your questions in the chat box and send to everyone. If you need technical assistance, please put your message in the chat box and send to the host. I repeat, if you have any technical issues during this program or event, please enter your question or your message in the chat box and send to host. Lastly, kindly note that this session will be recorded and broadcasted. Recording of this session and presentations will be made available through the Minamata Convention website shortly after the session. So thank you very much. And without much further ado, I hand over the mic to Gabby Eigenman of UNIDO. Gabby, the floor is yours.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is with us. And also a very warm welcome from UNIDO to this side event, the first side event. We are very happy or proud to be the first one. This side event is about waste management, mercury waste management. It's about collaboration in the sub-region. We have the following structure of our side event. We will start with a short introduction done by Michel Chiren from Switzerland, Federal Office for the Environment. They provided financial support for the studies, which were conducted by Urban Elements, an organization in South Africa, and the World Resource Forum, another organization in Switzerland. The results, a very short snapshot of the results of these two studies in ECOWAS and SADC on coordinated waste management will be presented by me. After that introduction, then we have a panel discussion conducted by Matthias Schlüpp from the World Resource Forum. He will introduce the different participants just before the panel starts. We will also have a lot of time for question and answer after that panel, so you can write your questions in the chat during the presentation, but we will address them after the panel discussion. And after my presentation, also to make the entire event a little bit more interactive, we have a short quiz, so be ready for that. The entire event will conclude with another speech of Michel Chiren from Switzerland. So with no further ado, I would like to give the micro to, the micro, I cannot give the micro, but I would ask Michel Chiren to start the opening remarks. So.
Thank you very much, Gabi. I hope you can hear me. I see you nodding, so that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And thank you also, Richard. Dear colleagues, to welcome you to this Minamata COP4 side event on promoting implementation of the Minamata Convention on Mercury with a synergetic approach in the ECOWAS and SADC region. That's crucial for the preparation and establishment of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, and we are proud to host the convention secretariat in Geneva. And the commitment of Switzerland to the Minamata Convention and to the sound management of chemicals and waste in general is a strong commitment, and it has not stopped with the entry into force of the Minamata Convention, of course. Through our partners like UNIDO, we have been supporting many governments in their efforts with regards to the ratification and early implementation of the convention. And in this context, for us, it is important to recognize that a synergetic approach on the convention level and also on the implementation level is most efficient and effective. This is why we believe it is very important that UNIDO, with the financial contribution of Switzerland, has conducted studies on the development of a sub-regional approach for environmentally sound management of mercury-containing waste, which takes into account the provisions of the Minamata Convention and also the BRS conventions. It is a pleasure that this side event now presents the results from these studies and provides the opportunity to discuss how the proposed implementation roadmap could be realized, also in a way to provide a model for other subregions. And it is a pleasure for me on behalf of the Swiss government to open this workshop side event. I would like to thank UNIDO, but also the World Resources Forum and Urban Elements for their very valuable work on these topics. And I would like to thank UNIDO together with the Minamata Secretariat for organizing this side event and for their support. And thanks, of course, to you, dear colleagues, for your participation here today. I wish everyone a fruitful and interesting discussion. Thank you very much. Back to you, Gabi.
Thank you, Michel, for the opening. So we will directly proceed to the presentation. I hope you can see it. Okay, let me see. Yes, I have the pleasure now to present you in a nutshell the outcome of this study, of this project, and I will let you know we have we have people from the World Resource Forum and Urban Elements with us, also in the panel, and at the end of during the question and answer session, so we will have also, you have the possibility to get more information on it. As I said, the idea was to see what would be the elements of a sub-regional approach for environmental sound management for mercury-containing waste in the ECOWAS region and in the SADC region. So that was the overall idea. And these two studies are part of a bigger project that is supported by Switzerland within UNIDO. And the overall objective of that project is really to support needs-based support to the countries when it comes to the implementation of the Minamata Convention. So this study was done, request, let me see. Go to the next slide. Yes. Okay. Was done on the request of these two regions. They said we would like to see what is needed when we would like to improve the coordination and cooperation in the waste management, specific in the mercury waste management, and see are there synergies when it comes to other hazardous waste management. So that was the objectives, to see, to develop a sub-regional approach, elements for a sub-regional approach for mercury and other mercury-bearing electronic wastes. That was the idea. What was the expected outcome? We wanted to develop such an approach. We needed a situation analysis, know what exists now, what are the regulations, what is the waste volume and other elements in the region, what is the current situation, and then based on that develop elements for such a sub-regional approach, and also include a roadmap that would go in a more concrete direction when it comes to the implementation of such a sub-regional approach. Somehow I cannot go to the next slide. Okay, good. These are the partners. These were our partners from ECOWAS. We had a number of countries who were willing to join, and we had also countries from SADC. So a little bit more than 20 countries who were part of this study. But we were also working with the relevant stakeholders from the private sector. These were the areas of the situation analysis. As I said, they looked at the policies and regulations, sources and volume of waste, the capacities for storage and treatment of this waste, collection and transport, then also the costs for the management, for the environmental sound management, of course, of this waste, and that includes as well final disposal and best practices for environmental sound management, what is the recycling potential, what type of economic instruments to finance such an approach at national or the regional level are already in place, and what stakeholders are involved. So these areas were looked at. The methodology used was, we used questionnaires, sent out questionnaires to the different countries. A lot of desk search was done on existing information. Then meetings were conducted with the participating countries and stakeholders. Some telephone interviews were done, and also some web-based and email-based information sourcing. So basically, we were not set up new database. We were just looking what is available. And as you know, the Minamata national assessments, many countries have conducted this assessment with the support of the CHEF, and they provided also very valuable information. So what is the general outcome? In a very snapshot, the general outcome was that general policies on mercury waste management is in most of the country really missing. It's a different situation for the e-waste. There are some countries where they have policies, but for mercury, many countries, in most of the countries, that is missing. We still face a lack of data on the management of the mercury waste, on the different stages of this management. The treatment and disposal capacity is still low. We have one exception, South Africa, where we hear then during the panel a little bit more. Data, as we know, it's always quite challenging to get really good data, and especially on the costs for mercury management. They found some data, but there would need to have more concrete calculation on that. Then also on the financing part, most of the countries have no economic instruments. There are a few that have already something for e-waste. In South Africa, a few countries started there to have an EPR system, extended producer responsibility scheme. Best practice for mercury waste management hardly exists. Then the potential, as said by Michel in the introduction, for synergies, for more collaboration between the countries is there, and it's really high. Not only for economic reasons, but also for environmental reasons. So this potential is there, is used in some areas, but there is a high potential to use it more. What we found out there are very low synergies for combined management of mercury and other mercury-containing e-waste. It's a big challenge. It would be too complicated to really have a facility that looks at all, or have an approach that looks at all the waste streams in together. But the collaboration for different waste streams, that there is a really, really high potential. One exception is maybe when we look at the mercury waste, mercury export for mercury, for final disposal. There, I think that is it's clear synergies when we look maybe at the end of the pipe of the entire management to have there one, but it goes also in the direction of more collaboration. Then we also ask ourselves, what are the preconditions of such a sub-regional approach? Of course, we would need a sub-regional hub who would say, okay, one or more hubs in one region, one country would need to be the pioneer or willing to be take this role. And for that, it would be good if in that country already a certain volume of waste is there to make it economically viable. General infrastructure in such a hub countries would also be very useful, including road infrastructure, stable power supply, and so on. But also specific infrastructure is an advantage for waste processing and treatment facilities. If they're already planned, if they're already existing, that would be also a very advantage for such a hub country. We need also to consider the political factors. So to facilitate kind of, if you have agreements, for example, regional convention like the Bamako Convention, they can facilitate coordination, but they can also challenge such an approach. So we also have to take that in consideration. And then when we look specifically at ECOWAS, we need to take into consideration the linguistic factors. So, for example, if we have hub countries that would be ready to take the role to do the management for the region of this waste, it could be that one should be in a French-speaking part and one in the English-speaking part. So very generally, we could say there are few elements that need to be part of such a sub-regional approach for mercury waste and mercury being e-waste. Harmonized regulatory and policy framework that needs at regional level, and it needs also to exist at national level. As we understand, it's still a challenge to have specific regulations on mercury waste in the different countries. We would also need to assess the required technologies and related investments for such an approach. A financing mechanism and economic instruments are key because it needs to be in the long run self-running. Maybe at the start there could be some seed funds, but at the end it needs to run on its own. Of course, as I mentioned before, a hub country or several hub countries would be needed, and the stakeholder engagement all over this process is also very, very important. Opportunities. There are a few opportunities we can, if such a coordinated approach would benefit really both the human health and environment. So that's also the idea of the Minamata Convention. So definitely that would be an opportunity. They will be able to, as a whole, the ECOWAS and SADC region generates enough waste for a profitable recycling industry when we look at the resources that can be used. But mercury we don't want to recycle, but when we look at the mercury-bearing e-waste, there are certain things that can be recycled. Then there would be also job opportunities when such a regional hub would be developed. So new jobs would be created. Here we have also to take into consideration the informal sector, which plays an important role in this area. And then it would also improve the relations in the region. So more cooperation that could also a starting point to swap over in other areas. Challenges, it needs commitment, it needs active participation of all. And when all are needed, then we know the discussions are needed, consultations are needed, and that takes time. A sub-regional financing system, to establish such a system could be a challenge. That to find a way that everyone contributes in a similar manner. So it's feasible, but it's not. It will probably be a challenge. Then there could be also the risk of dependency on one or certain countries hosting the hubs. But that could be addressed through a shared responsibility and ownership, but it's also a challenge that probably could be faced. And the proposed approach offers synergies for the treatment of e-waste, but not, or as I already said, a relative view for medical only mercury-containing waste, because there is no, the synergies cannot be used there, except maybe for the final disposal of the mercury. So then the two studies developed areas for a sub-regional approach, also for a roadmap. What concrete would that mean? So in the ECOWAS, there are 7 areas, and also in SADC, there are 7 areas that were looked at it. So the regional cooperation needs to be improved, and I think that applies for both. Then to harmonize the policies when it comes to environmentally sound management of this waste, that needs to be done at national and regional level. Then more concrete, standardized mercury-specific normative requirements on all stages of the value chain are needed at regional level, national level. Then more studies need to be conducted on the available infrastructure for this environmental sound management of mercury waste, including all the stages of the management, like treatment and final disposal. The financing system I have already mentioned, that could be done with an extended producer responsibility, maybe would need to be complemented. We have some examples when it comes to e-waste in Ghana and Rwanda, but for mercury waste only, we cannot find it yet. Then define and share responsibilities. So ECOWAS countries need to commit and to actively participate. We would also need a strong role of the regional organization ECOWAS that applies for all these elements. And then it would be also useful to have a pilot. Start small and then scale up to see maybe a few countries in the region. So these are the building blocks of a roadmap from the ECOWAS study. In SADC, we see similar elements. They looked also at the governance, coordination, and regulation. So they really concretely proposed also to have a steering committee for mercury and e-waste management, but also to develop the specific regulation, as we have seen in ECOWAS. Then database would be very needed, and that would also include a monitoring and evaluation system for these different waste streams. Collection, storage, and transport system of mercury and e-waste needs to be facilitated for to improve the situation, and also simplify the transparent movement process at customs and mercury and e-waste. These are the three first, and then other four treatment capabilities we have seen. It's low. There are some countries who have it, but it needs to be improved. Establish a regional economic instrument, finance. The approach needs to be financed, and as I said, it needs to be self-running. Then the best available techniques and best environmental practices to identify what does it mean for the region, but also promote it then at different levels. And then stakeholder engagement is very important, and still also the awareness raising on the impact of these hazardous components to the human health and environment. So this is it in a very nutshell, and we will have more time also, especially to discuss a little bit these priority areas, the roadmap, not only in the context of these two sub-regions. We would like also to hear from other regions. Are these priority areas, are these two roadmaps something that could be useful in other areas? Is something missing in other regions? Is something missing? Is something similar? So with that, I conclude. Thank you very much. And now I hand over to Jonas. I need to see how to stop the presentation. Here. My computer is stuck. Yes, good.
Now you stopped sharing.
Thanks.
So thank you, Gabi, first of all. And I would also like to welcome everyone to the side event. And in order to give you a little insight to the mercury pollution related to the regions, and overall, we prepared a little quiz for you, also to make it a little bit more interactive. Unfortunately, we do not have a polling tool available for this event, so I would still like to ask you some questions, and maybe you guys can then think of it. But writing into the chat would be a little bit too messy, so I will share my screen, show you the questions, and hopefully you guys can think of it by yourself. I think now you can see my screen, and then I would like to come to the first question related to the SADC region. So how much mercury waste is produced in average by every SADC country per year, based on the data available from the study? So here we have A, 83,000 kilograms per year, B, 94,000 kilograms per year, C, 123,000 kilograms per year, or D, 136,000 kilograms per year. So I'll give you a little time to think over. And yeah, the question's answer then actually is 123,000 kilograms per year. So every country from the SADC region releases or produces actually 123,000 kilograms per year of mercury waste, which is actually quite a lot. Then regarding the second question, and I would like to ask you how much mercury waste is in total is released to the environment through general waste in the ECOWAS region per year. Same here again, we have 4 answers. And I will give you a little time to think about it again. Showing you the solution now. So actually 106,000 kilograms per year are released to the environment. So, which is also really problematic based on human health and also environmental risks. And finally, also, how high is the atmospheric concentration of mercury? And this is then related to the natural level and also with a base year of 2019. And again, we have 4 solutions for you. A, 80%, B, 190%, C, 310%, and D, 450%. So actually the numbers pretty shocking because we're already above 450% of natural level. And this quiz was supposed to show you that actually contributing to Minamata and also reducing mercury overall and also in the 2 regions might have a huge impact on the environment and human health, since mercury is damaging the environment sharply and also related to human health, since it can be also lethal, and exposure is really bad for affected communities and also for wildlife and habitats. So thanks.
Thank you, Jonas, for this short quiz. I hope you are all again with us. And now we go to the next agenda item, and that's the panel. So we have a discussion that is conducted by Matthias Schlüpp. He will introduce the different members who have not yet been introduced so far. And the idea is really to also, to discuss a little bit the outcomes and also what next could be done in the sub-region. Matthias, I hand over to you. Matthias is from the World Resource Forum, one of the organizations that conducted a study under this project.
Thank you, Gabriela. Welcome everybody, and also thank you for the very nice introduction, Gabi, into the studies. I think that already gives us a very good idea about the issue we have in these 2 regions. I would like to welcome, Patricia from Urban Elements. Patricia, if you also maybe could show yourself, turn on your video. And I would also like to welcome Stefan from Light Recycling. Let's say also a practical. We have a more strategic person here who was involved in the study in the SADC region, who actually probably knows pretty much now a lot about the SADC region. We have Stefan, who is actually the practitioner, one of the pioneers when it comes to the recycling of mercury waste also in the southern region, actually from South Africa. And I'm not sure if we have Rokaya in the panel. I think she did probably not make it. It would have been a representative from the ECOWAS region, but I think we can also cover this through ourselves. I would like to start with Patricia. Maybe if you then first can give you a very short introduction about yourself, and you have authored the study in the SADC region, and then maybe give from your point of view. We heard about a little bit the situation and the challenges, but just from your point of view, what did you sense and feel were the key challenges in the regions when you talked to the stakeholders and made your study? You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Matthias, and I welcome everybody here today. Thank you for attending. Yes, so Matthias, let me introduce myself first. I'm Patricia Schroeder. I'm the founder and director of Urban Elements, an organization based in South Africa that focuses on environmental projects and so forth. And we conducted the study for the SADC region. And some of the challenges that I would highlight for the SADC region that we found that were quite evident during the study. Well, the first thing was which surprised me, was the low commitment or participation of regulators and representatives within these regions. It was mostly the private sector that was very active and involved. So that we need to change. We need to change that participation rate from the representatives and the regulators, because they are the ones that are going to make this work together with everyone else. The second point that was quite a challenge was the lack of traceable data in the majority of the countries in terms of volumes and the sources of mercury waste. There was some knowledge within the private sector, but you know, we need to understand this better. And then also the third, I've got 4 points. The third is the lack of knowledge around mercury management overall. Very few countries knew exactly what was happening with mercury in their countries, how it was managed, how it was transported. Many weren't even aware of what was going on, so that needs to be improved. And then also the last point that was quite challenging was the lack of long-term storage for stabilized mercury. In South Africa, there used to be an option. It's still under discussion whether they're going to still allow that, but permanent storage for stabilized mercury, you know, in Africa is non-existent at this point in time, and it has to be shipped to Germany, for example, which to ensure that it is stored for life and stored correctly. So those are the main challenges that we experienced during the study.
Thank you, Patricia. Now we have a Stefan also. Stefan, maybe if you can quickly introduce yourself and your company Light Cycle, and from your point of view, I mean, you're actually the one providing a technical solution, but I'm sure that a little bit from a different perspective, you also see quite some challenges to run your business. Please, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stefan Schroeder. I'm from a company called Revolve SA. We provide services to recycling services on a South African nationwide basis to the lighting industry, to the electronics industry, and also within the healthcare sector. We mainly started operation to recycle lighting lamps, batteries, and electronic waste, and have since, mainly with the goal to recover mercury, and have now expanded this into the entire electronic waste market. And I'll come to this later, where this is coming from and why this is required. When we originally started operating, the biggest challenge that we found is pretty much what Patricia said, that we echo this, the understanding in greater African or Southern African area of legislators having a buy-in into the sound management of mercury-bearing waste and other electronic waste. And the biggest drivers behind most of these are the large OEMs, large corporates, and non-profit organizations that are driving this forward. We are very fortunate now in South Africa that we have extended producer responsibility being legislated and actually being enforced, even though it's going through the normal hurdles of every extended producer responsibility legislation that needs to be set up. So it's another growing step. So from that point, I would say I very much echo that from Patricia. We offer our services also to our neighboring countries and to other Southern African countries, and we have had some shipments coming in from other African countries. In the last 5 years, I would say that volume has increased quite a bit, but the biggest hurdle that we have is the availability for consolidation facilities within those regions, as we have to go through a Basel permit process for each and every shipment that we're doing from each and every generator. It increases the cost for each generator. So the only way that we're what we're currently working on is with the private sector to develop a hub and spoke model so that there's smaller consolidation facilities within the various different countries, being able to recover valuable resources that can contribute to the local economy and then help subsidize the costs for shipping of the hazardous fractions that cannot be treated locally. Most of these countries would benefit from having a stronger local legislation that would enable these smaller entities to actually become bigger and have more local support, where they currently receive the support through our OEMs, through our large manufacturers and private sector companies that obviously want to have our services also supplied in those countries. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, and I'm open for questions, and I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. You already hinted a little bit, local support, but then also actually there's a regional component to this, to the solution. And actually the studies they had this, regional solutions, it's in the title of these studies. And maybe this is a question for Gabi, the motivation of UNIDO, Minamata, they say, we seek for regional solutions. Are there examples for these regions from other areas where you said we were going the path and we're looking for synergistic regional solutions for other issues? Or if not, what are actually, from a multilateral point of view, more the hurdles to actually achieve synergistic solutions on the regional level?
Yes, so far, I'm not forever with UNIDO, but so far in our area, Minamata sector, we have not found an example for coordination. But what we know that there is really a need for it, and it's not just because we think it makes sense from a multilateral perspective, but really the countries ask us also in other areas to see to take a regional approach. We are here also to facilitate, to listen to the countries, what are the needs, then also to link with possible financial resources, as in this case, the study was financed by Switzerland. For the next step, we would need different type of funds, but also to ensure that in long run, it's a self-funding mechanism. No, we can provide we can provide to support them, maybe to do a next step, to do a next involve more, as we hear, more regulators, and then really develop a regional approach, bring in the regional organizations. There we see we are more a facilitator, also to bring the different stakeholders together. Yeah, that's what I think is from our side. We see our role there.
Okay, that actually, there's probably two elements to this. You say, first of all, on a regional basis, the countries need somehow a certain level of being able to speak to each other and harmonize things. On the other side, they also need to find somebody who speaks responsible for this type of waste, and actually comes up with maybe with a kind of a financing mechanisms. What is important to that, Patricia? You were looking at the SADC region. First of all, on one side, what would be the key steps in that? How to bring countries together, and then what's the instrument to identify the responsibilities, and where do these finances could come from?
Okay, yes. So for the SADC regions to work together, I think the presentation pointed out that we need to establish a SADC region steering committee. There seemed to be a lot of interest in that from all stakeholders. From the study to start working, that is the baseline, and then to start getting information and working together. The other point I would like to make is South Africa, for example, could be the hub for the region to to establish or to share the knowledge of the best practice to the other countries, and also to assist in terms of how to manage and store these waste types. And then in terms of the funding, South Africa is also the first country in the SADC region, if I recall correctly, to have introduced extended producer responsibility, which is the financial mechanisms that can assist for these type of waste. Although in South Africa it's just for e-waste right now, but we need to look at it in a broader sense for mercury and other very dangerous and hazardous wastes as well. But that could be used as a baseline for other countries to learn from and to implement. But as I said, there we would need to work with the regulators in terms of the policy establishment, and there will be a lot of interest and participation from the private sector and other stakeholders as well.
Okay, thanks, Patricia. Yeah, I think we heard the important thing, and I will come to you, Stefan. You put up your hand. We heard about extended producer responsibility, so that's actually how we identify, the responsible entity is the producer. But I think the SADC region is from one point, sure, not just from this type of models which are already available, but also from other points a little bit advanced. I mean, technologically, we have actually solutions, technological solutions. Stefan, you represent one. So if we still try to look a little bit to the ECOWAS region and think of, because in our study we did not identify such a solution. So Stefan, if you say, if we find an investor in the ECOWAS region, what would you tell him and say, what is important for him to look at in the region if he wants to support the region in finding, let's say, also a synergistic approach from a technology point of view, business point of view?
So thank you very much for that, Matthias. So we've actually been in a discussion with recyclers, startup recyclers, established e-waste recyclers within the ECOWAS region to develop also regional hubs. So we believe that actually for successful African-wide, Pan-African recycling system that can cover mercury and other hazardous wastes that are now going to enter the market also in the future. So it's to not just concentrate on one waste streams, but on a global part, that we will actually require 2 or 3 of these hubs and spokes. And then these hubs can cooperate within the various different waste streams. I would suggest any investor that would like to invest into building this to understand, number one, a country that has existing EPR legislation or where it is about to be implemented, so that you have governmental support. It needs to have port access, so it needs to be a country on the ocean, ideally with a larger port and an existing, even if it's basic, but an existing manufacturing infrastructure, because that's the only way that we can localize resource recovery and localization of manufacturing of these products. And that is the most cost-effective version. The other reason why these hubs need to be located in industrial ports is to ensure that transportation costs are kept relatively financially viable. I would say that the willingness of the people is very, very important. So there needs to be a cultural understanding of the local. So if you're an investor, if you have money, that's good, but you need to have a local buy-in, and you need to have a local person that can actually drive this in a successful without money. The money will just help grow it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, Stefan, these are very nice and very good practical recommendations. I think very valuable. So I think with this, I would like to give the word back to Gabi, because I think then we might have some questions from the audience.
Thank you very much, Matthias, Patricia, Stefan, for this good discussion. I think they have probably triggered questions, and now we would like to open the floor for questions on the panel discussion, on the studies, or as I said, maybe inputs also from participants from their own region and their shared experience from their region. Maybe in some other regions, a sub-regional approach has already been tested. So we open the floor. You can write questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and Jonas, you will check who was first and give the...
Yeah, sure, there's already one question. I will request to unmute.
Okay, so...
I see one question from Mariama Kante from Guinea. She raised her hand and I requested to unmute. So maybe Sheriful can unmute her, please.
If not, she can also write the question in the chat.
I think she can unmute herself now.
Actually, I'm sending her a request to unmute, but she needs to accept the request.
Okay, and for others, if you have questions, maybe the easiest is really to write it in the chat so we can already have a look at it, maybe also group them. Someone who has another region than Africa, who has some experience which could be useful for us to know, to share with us, or just any type of question.
If I may just add in while we're waiting for a question. So
yes,
when we were looking for solutions, we always look globally, and not necessarily globally to purchase machinery or things like that, but we looked at how other countries have made it, have provided solutions, and then we try to develop our own solution that is more suitable for our own industry. And one of the things that if you're building any type of recycling machinery, a technical expert should have a look at what is locally available to replicate this type of technology. Instead of, I know there's two sides to this coin. There's the engineering companies that spend a lot of money on this and build very good solutions, but those solutions are not necessarily always viable in other parts of the world. And I'll give a very simple example. We've had one part that we re-engineered because shipping times were 6 weeks, and without it, the machine doesn't work. Re-engineering took us 5 days. So it's very, very simple like this. So, and this is where it's important that solutions are local where possible. It's not always possible, but where it should be local.
Stefan, also a question while we are, maybe there is more questions coming and then we skip mine, but we talk a lot about a regional hub, and that we should ship the waste to this regional hub. I mean, I always hear about this is complicated, and also especially recyclers complaining because it's a hurdle. There's the Basel Convention, you know, there's different hurdles. So how do you approach this? Because I understand that you're actually getting waste from other countries.
Basel Convention, the Basel Convention is a very, very important tool, and it should never be superseded or anybody trying to say, oh, we need to find a different way. It has very good guidelines, and it gives us a very good direction of how to ship waste. Without it, we would, I can guarantee we would be flooded with illegal waste shipments. Every country pretty much. So I'm very glad it's there in its existence. And it only becomes difficult if you do not have an in-country waste hub So every country has to have a waste hub that can be the local representative. And then from there, you can do shipments. At that point, one Basel permit per year is not a very large effort. The other challenge is any type of shipments where I would say where you have to cross more than 2 country borders becomes very expensive, and it becomes difficult to do because especially if we're going on shipping lines, there can always be an incident where the ship has to dock in another harbor. A container could be offloaded. Then that becomes difficult. But we are in conversation with Basel and the Basel Council and the Secretariat to find better ways to deal with these type of incidents so that that doesn't prevent shipment and the intention of Basel. So hence the hub and spoke model, because the hubs are regional so that road transport can be effective and you have a large coverage. Ports are there because a ship can leave one country and dock in another country that is might be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 kilometers away, and you only have to have one Basel permit, and it's a direct ship transfer. So that's the main reason for this. It purely has to do with a logistics background. And I'm sure there are much better and much smarter logistics people than me out there that can provide better background there. Yeah, that's the main reason.
Also, if I may interrupt real quick, there is a question from one attendee. So if we want to give Angels Castello the floor, I'm going to request to unmute you. So I think you can unmute yourself now.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for giving me the floor. My name is Angels Castello. I'm working at Batrec, a Swiss company for the stabilization of mercury. And I simply wanted to say that I can subscribe everything that Stefan said in terms of both of having a look of what is available in the country, what is the willingness of the participants, what is the availability of technology, and then having a look of what's has been done in other parts of the world. I would say I've been moving ways around for many years now. I'm at Batrec for in the last since the last 2 years. And Basel Convention is really, as Stefan said, gives the tools, is a guideline. It looks like it's great. It's a difficult thing. It's tough, but it really gives a perfect standard. And if you are like accompanying the people that's facing that as for the first time, and you are giving the expertise, I wish everything was that regulated in terms of waste. I mean, it's something that it needs an expertise. It needs to be very careful at fulfilling whatever everything is demanded, but it provides equal rules for everybody. And when we are facing complicated countries, it's really need to have such a strong legislation, let's say. And we, as from Batrec, we have been successfully taking care of projects in the LATAM region, and yeah, different countries have different, let's say, infrastructures or needs or lack of infrastructures, but we, with a lot of patience and the willingness of the producer or the waste holder, we have been able to go through it.
Thanks.
That's the only thing I wanted to say about an expertise in another part of the world, let's say. Thank you.
Yeah, we're facing now the same problem as usual. No, 1 hour seems to be long, but then at the end it's very short. So we have 1 more minute. And as I understand from the Secretariat, we are not allowed to, it's not a negotiation where we can just continue. It's really just 1 hour. So I'll give briefly thank you everyone for being here. Michelle, you have a few seconds to close this event.
Gabi,
I
you
sent
can
you.
continue for another 5 minutes if you'd like to.
Ah, can we? Okay, good. If there is another question, but yeah, we send you. I will also send my email address in the chat, and if other panel members maybe do that, if there are other questions, we can follow up, or I will just, Jonas, you can also send yours. Michelle, I'll give you the floor that you have more than 30 seconds, which is nice from the secretary to allow us 5 more minutes.
Thank you. I don't need that much time. I saw that you, Patricia, you had perhaps one more thing you wanted to mention. I'm glad to let you go first, if that's still the case.
No, I'm good. The other lady covered some of the things, so I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Excellent. So colleagues, I just want to thank everyone for joining this side event, and you know, for the rich discussion that we've had now in this past hour. As Gabi rightly said, it's always passing very quickly. For me, this hour showed the importance of environmentally sound management of hazardous waste, and in particular also waste containing mercury, and the need for, you know, information and data about the situation to be able to establish a good management. And it clearly, the different interventions today, that the cost for the environment and human health is very high, and way too high, if this environmentally sound management is not in place. So we really have to continue working on that. I also believe that these 2 studies showed how this potentially can be done, and it showed that, you know, the countries involved, there is willingness to move forward, and that is also needed to take action, because legislation and measures are not yet in place. It was, though, interesting to hear also from that companies involved, you know, they see that they see the merit in moving forward, and that also valuable components can be recovered. As can be interesting to establish a good system also for that reason, while taking care of the mercury and other hazardous parts that we want to get out of the cycle. So the discussion showed the high potential in using synergies with the conventions. It was highlighted just at the end again, the importance of the Minamata Convention and the Basel Convention to give a very clear frame in which all the stakeholders are operating in. And the studies and discussion today showed the potential for synergies with regard to the implementation on the ground, and that, for example, such sub-regional collaboration and centers for different waste streams, but in particular e-waste, are very interesting and should be looked at further, and that pioneer countries can take a lead role, because it seems from your analysis, colleagues, that in terms of waste volumes, such collaboration that goes across national borders is possible and would be needed. And also that in terms of financing mechanisms, therefore, it would be necessary, but also possible, that in the long term, self-financing would be feasible. So I am convinced that those examples, those 2 cases from the sub-regions are helpful also for other regions, and that it will be important to continue the work on how to best collaborate. And therefore, I want to thank again all of you that have contributed to the studies, the World Resources Forum, the Urban Elements, and other partners, and in particular UNIDO, and again for organizing the side event and the help of the Minamata Secretariat. So on behalf of the Swiss government, many thanks again, and that's it for me. I don't know if I'm handing back to Richard now. You appeared on the screen.
Thanks, Michelle. I just wanted to thank everyone. It was a very interesting discussion, and on behalf of the Secretariat, to the panelists, to UNIDO, and to the Swiss government, thank you so much. And we look forward to the continued participation and support, especially of everyone here, to continue to support the convention, and let us all make Mercury history. Thank you so much for this event. Have a good day. Have a good evening, everyone. We close the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.